My name's Shiva Feshareki and I'm a composer and a turntablist and I'm from London.
So tell us a bit about your new piece, tell us about O.
It's a highly sculptural composition based around the idea that the sound is travelling around the stage in various patterns and various shapes. Initially the idea was that the sound is travelling in a very physical way, like the way that a record on a turntable spins round and round and then reverses in various speeds. So that was the initial idea, and then as the composition developed, the structures and the sculptures became more complex and with more patterns. The piece really focuses on natural resonance and also on everyday physical phenomena such as the sound of the leaves as the wind blows through the trees. So I'd listen to that and carefully analyse that sound, or the sound of water dripping down the drain and how it sounds and how the actual physical element is affecting the sound. So you've got the water and the gravity pulling that water down the drain, and then at the same time it's affecting sounds. Or where I compose, it's on a really busy road in London and there's loads of police cars and sirens outside my window. So it's about, the piece focuses on these everyday physical sounds. So the sound of a police car going down my street and how that sound shifts and changes as it moves further and further away. So then it's about bringing that onto the stage, and that's about it, I think. Yeah, so the orchestra is seated loosely in 4 groups, and it's a kind of circular formation as well, a bit like a vinyl disc. But also I used the golden ratio of geometry to seat the orchestra in a specific way so that the sound really sounds like it's moving around the stage in different various forms. So it's about reconstructing the orchestra into a form that I feel suits what I'm trying to achieve the most. It's a massive challenge for the conductor because first of all, you're not faced with a normal orchestral score. You're faced with 45 different staves, so you need a score this big with 2 to 3 times as many staves on the score. So he's having to follow a lot more instrumental lines, and also he has to learn where the different instruments are coming from, so to be able to cue them in, it's different to a normal orchestra. You can't just rely on the way you normally do it because it's completely back to front and all over the place, really. So it's a massive challenge for the conductor because not only have I had to think in a very different way about orchestral composition, but the conductor, Rob, has had to think a very different way about conducting.
When you talked to the orchestra earlier today, you stressed the importance of resonance, or working with open strings, open sounds. Why is that important?
Because for me, it's not really about pitches. Music isn't a set of pitches and a set of notes. Really, sound is resonance and frequency. Notes are just something we made up in the Western world. We have 12 chromatic notes and that becomes music. But really for me, music is deeper than that. It's about resonance and frequency. So it's more about how the sound interacts with the space it's in rather than the notes that are being played. So that's why I was stressing resonance a lot, yeah. I used to write for the orchestra when I was younger, a lot more, and then I took a massive break from orchestral composition to experiment outside of concert music, to work with different types of artists. So I was working a lot with visual artists and installation artists. I was working with dance music producers. I was working with physicists. I was working with jazz musicians, with improvisers. So I was collaborating a lot outside of the realm that I'm used to in order to come back to orchestral composition with a fresh perspective. Had I continued writing just concert music, there's no way I would have the perspective I have now to really reshape and rethink what it means to write orchestral music.
The work also includes an experimental and improvised piece for turntable and organ. Tell us a bit about that. How does that fit into the whole context of the performance?
Well, the reason why it fits into the context is because of the improvisations I did as a turntablist. I actually came up with the concepts of the composition. So it was through my improvisations with various people, especially Kit on the organ, that I started to think about sound and music in a different way. So it's almost like the improvisation is a key element of the composition because it shows the listener the roots of my inspiration. I think the beauty of it is that me and Kit, we've never rehearsed before, we've never practiced before. The only time we have ever played together has been live in performance or live in concert or live on the radio. We never plan anything and we never prepare anything, because I think the beauty of true improvisation is really going with the flow and feeling the present moment and really listening and trusting each other. So I guess it's very different to classical traditions because, well, neither me nor Kit really fit exactly into the classical tradition anyway, but I think in this context it works really well because the improvisation between me and Kit is this completely raw and unplanned element, and then you have the orchestral composition framing it, which is completely planned and almost mechanic in its construction. So it shows two very different perspectives, yet they're linked so closely. It's only during the improvisation that I play the turntables. However, the idea of the piece is that it is the sound is spinning on a turntable. So I didn't want to add turntables to a piece that's already conceptually a turntable. I thought it's better to have the orchestral composition as a separate sculpture and then the improvisation. But at the moment it is the same piece. I mean, it's not like me and Kit are doing an improvisation and then there's the orchestral piece. We've merged it into one big composition.